Are you a book lover or enthusiast? Do you need genuine and unique lifestyle products? Or are you looking for a place where you can find contemporary and a wide range of unique gifts for children and adults? Laterna is your go-to place for genuine and contemporary books and lifestyle products for wholesale and retail customers. We stock business books on management, leadership, financial success, entrepreneurship, personal development, and so much more. We carry children's fiction, non-fiction, educational books, CDs, and DVDs. We also stock Christian books on various themes, such as church life and growth, spirit-filled living, love, sex, and marriage, to mention but a few. Laterna carries life and style books such as baby and child care, beauty and style, conception and pregnancy, crafts, and hobbies. We also carry adult, children, and teenagers' Bibles, educational toys, framed art, gifts, greeting cards, home and office fragrances, stationery, teachings, and lots more. Our stores are located at plot 1611 Adiola Hopewell Street, Victoria Island, Lagos. Online at www.laternabooks.ng. Laterna, your lifestyle hub for book lovers. For inquiries, call 0803 301 4462, 0809 525 3223, 0809 525 3484, or 0809 525 3485. Chat with us via WhatsApp on 0810 023 4441. You may also reach us on social media via Twitter at Laterna Books, Instagram at Laterna Books, and Facebook at Laterna Ventures.
The man Lai Mohammed. Because we didn't see that humble beginning. How did it just start? The man Lai Mohammed, did he just become what he is today overnight, or he started somewhere? How did it happen?
Permit me first to thank those who are here for this book reading, those who are physically here, and those who are joining us virtually. Unfortunately, I am not able to see them. I want to thank in particular my very first boss, Chief Mrs. Loretta Smith, who is here today. Amazingly, she's kept in touch with me all throughout. She's never lost, faith in me. Thank you, man, for being here. And everybody who's here, thank you very, very much. IDPK began a long time ago. I began some 75 years ago, but just like, all of us, we had our own stories, we had our own, challenges. I was never a very regular person. I was quite boisterous and quite troublesome, people my age. And of course, Nigeria was a very good country then. So you didn't really need to work too hard to pass. But I was able to pass my exams. And got to university fairly easily. And I did a degree in French. And then afterwards, I went to teach at the University of Buhari. I taught as a graduate assistant Department of Modern European Languages. And then something happened and I had to appoint myself at the then Nigerian Health Authority, where I eventually became the spokesperson for the then Nigerian Health Authority, which is today FAN.
I like your story. Thank you. I like it. Sometimes we need to know where you are coming from, because a lot of people just know you as a Lai Mohammed. So we need to know that he has a background. He didn't just fall from the sky to become the information minister. Okay, so why this title, And why did you decide to put this book?
Thank you, Mukta. It's always said that Africans, we don't write enough. And I think I owe posterity an obligation and duty to document my experiences as an insider in government for 8 years. For 8 years, I was in the engine room of decision making, of policy making. And I realized that more often than not, people misunderstood, some deliberately, what government was doing. So this book is actually about throwing more light, providing context where necessary, providing clarity, and at the same time, letting people know what actually goes on behind the headlines. What we all read is the headlines, what we all read, what we all hear, the soundbites. But a lot more goes in between, behind those headlines and soundbites. So what we have here is part documentation of what transpired during the era of the late president, that's 2015 to 2023. But more importantly, it's how we used communication, we used various strategies, we used various communication tools to define and shape not just the administration, but also the concept of a minister of information. Because what I found out very early is that a minister of information is more like a class captain, like a monitor. And while other ministers don't need to know what he does or how he functions, he has the responsibility to know what they do and how they function. So as a minister of information, we need to learn and understand and study what every minister does. Because if there's any problem, we'll call on you as a minister of information to explain. So this book is full of the various strategies and tools we used to ensure that at any given time, I was able to discharge the functions of that office.
Thank you, Raj. So I want to dive into the book. Now I want to talk about this book. But I won't be saying auxiliary will go and buy it. So we'll just give you some interesting part of the book. We have it. So, and if you want to buy it online, order, it will be delivered to you. But I just want, we'll just talk about, just choose some headlines and talk of table from the table of content. Alaji, one thing I noticed about your book, you said so much about His Excellency, the late General Muhammad Buhari. And to a lot of Nigerians, Buhari did not give them what they expected. Buhari was the leader they thought would turn around the fortune of Nigeria, especially in our fight against corruption. But in this book, you so much praise General Buhari as a good leader, a leader that had the interest of Nigeria, a leader that he believed so much in Nigeria, and a leader that has the listening ear of all his ministers. What really went wrong? Why did we not get that result that we expected? Why? What happened with all the expectation? And but this your book is giving us a different narrative. You are telling us about the man Buhari, how wonderful he is, how accommodating he is.
I think his first shot at presidency was when it happened with the AMPP, 2003. And I was there in AD. Essentially, we both ran for office at the same time, and we both lost. Of course, for me, then it was just that Muhammad Buhari in AMPP, and I was in AD. Our paths did not cross, I think, until sometimes in 2007, when we tried some form of partnership, alliance with the then NPP, which did not work. In 2011, almost worked. This time it was with the CPC. And even then, it was more like I was an outsider. I think my first contact with him was when I invited him to write forward to my book. The first book, The Witness to History. And of course, I didn't know him. I just knew him by reputation. But at that time, we were already talking about, a merger between CPC, AMPP, ACN, DPP, and the likes. So I knew tangentially. So I went to Verify. And I said, please, can the editor write a forward to my book? And he asked for a copy of the book, which I sent to him. Well, I didn't hear from him. So I called Mr. Verify. I said, I'm yet to hear from General. Then he called me and said, General is a bit reluctant, to write a forward to a book which carries a cartoon abusing him, which was true. I didn't. Then I sat down with my team and said, well, if that cartoon abusing him, which really abused him, would be a reason for him not to write a forward to my. Then let's remove the cartoon. So we remove the cartoon, and not only did Muhammad Buhari come for write the forward, was the first to arrive at the venue of the launch from Kaduna. That was 2013 or thereabout. And from then, we became a bit closer. I started to know him in a way that many people don't know him. I remember, and I think I quoted this I recorded in this book. When we were doing the merger, myself, used to accompany UBC Academy and President Tinubu to Kaduna. Incidentally, most of our meetings were either Mondays or Thursdays. And because I fast on Mondays and Thursdays, when it was time for lunch, I would decline. And one day, President Buhari asked Ashwaju, said, why doesn't like eating in my house? Does he think I'm going to poison him? Ashwaju said, no, Lai actually fasts on Mondays and Thursdays. That's why he's unable to eat. Oh, he said, that's a very good one. And a few days later, he called me to his office. He said, Lai, tell me the truth. How many people have you killed? And I looked and said, killed? said, I'm not killing anybody in my life. He said, you see, I am even afraid when Ramadan is coming. I don't like it. You fast 2 days in a week. What sins are you atoning for? And everybody laughed. That's the side of anybody that many people don't see. Again, one day we were in the campaign, when I went for campaign, and I think we were coming back from Makadi, and there was a very turbulent weather, and the plane actually almost crashed. But all throughout, Buhari was very calm. And we all attributed it to his stoic military background. When the plane landed finally, everybody, of course, Christians were singing hymns, and Muslims were reciting. So when the plane landed finally, it was back in the day, said, General, you are so calm all through. This military training is a fantastic training. I don't know who said it. One said it. And Buhari said, oh, I was calm because I know that this aircraft will not crash. There's somebody here who passed every day of his life, and God will not allow him to die with us. So that's the part of Buhari you really don't, you never see. But on a more serious note, now in office, Buhari is a person who, once he gives you an office, he gives you responsibility, he does not micromanage. He trusts you absolutely, and he will give you the support to do the job he's giving you. I give some examples. The first one that I think comes to mind is when I became minister, I realized that despite all the attempts we made, the government made, and the progress that was made in respect of fighting Boko Haram, the narrative out there was still that Boko Haram was holding sway everywhere. So my team and I decided that the best way to change this narrative be to have credible first-hand experience of what is going on at the theater of war, especially in those territories that the Boko Haram occupied before and have been taken over by the federal government. See, when people talk about insecurity in Nigeria, we forget that prior to 2015, 20 out of 27 local governments in Borno State were under the authority of Boko Haram. And here they actually had their own government, they installed emirs, they levied taxes. Anyway, said that we'll go with about 100 journalists, 40 journalists, international and local journalists, so that they can also record what they saw at, in this cities. We went to Maiduguri, we went to Kauri, we went to Kondoga, and went to Bama. Now, I was supposed to go with the Minister of Defense. Minister of Defense agreed, but a day to the event, the minister asked me if I'd gotten the permission of the president. And I said, no. He said, because only the commander-in-chief can deploy the military, can deploy the aircraft, can deploy fighter jets, and that we're going to need those going to the northeast. So I said, well, but you are the minister of defense. He said, no, it's not my project, it's your project. Anyway, I ran to the late chief of staff because the president was not in. And it was in, I think, South Africa for a program. But Within 2 hours, I got a feedback. The president said, go ahead. Now, so that shows you that the president, Muhammad Buhari, will give you everything you need to do your job. Another incident which I quoted in this book, I think has to do with when we had to, we needed some support from the federal government. See, when we started our campaign, Change Begins With Me, we were a bit naive. We have been chief of staff in Lagos State, but I've never been a minister at the federal level. Despite the fact that we did not have the budget provision, Buhari was so passionate and so enthusiastic about this problem, because it must have reminded him of his own old program war against indiscipline. Not only did he support it, he was there. So my own memory of Buhari is a leader who would always support you and encourage you. Now, one day, a cabinet colleague of mine, in that book also, a cabinet colleague of mine, during FEC meeting, as well as a council meeting, said, oh, this administration is doing very well. But the Minister of Information is not representing us well enough. And others joined. Everybody wanted to say they were doing well, but it was the fault of the Minister of Information who was not telegraphing what they were doing. And Buhari called them short and said, which Minister of Information are you talking about? I'm only one, Lai Mohammed. If that is the minister you're talking about, then I don't agree with you. Because just before I left home now, I saw him in Washington defending our administration. And that was the end of the matter. Now, Buhari will support you, will encourage you, he will not micromanage your office. And I said in this book that in my 8 years as a minister, Buhari called me only once to ask for a favor. I was in Lagos and my phone rang. And he said, Lai, where are you? So Stefani said, oh, please hold on for the president. Yes. And he said, Lai, where are you? Excellency, I'm in Lagos. He said, can you please do me a favor? I said, Excellency, yes, sir. He said, I'm supposed to deliver an address tomorrow at the Nigeria Institute of International Affairs. I promised I will come, but I cannot come again. Please, can you represent me? Because I said, yeah, Excellency. He said, you get the chief of staff to give you the paper you are going to read. That was the only time he asked me for a favor. And some of my colleagues also said the same thing. That's why when you talk about integrity, about accountability, you talk about a leader that leads by example is obviously one of them. So my relationship with Buhari is that of father, son, mentor, mentee, leader, follower, because he was always there for me.
You know, we did say in the nutshell that the man Buhari inability to micro-manage was the reason why we didn't get the kind of result we expected.
I don't know what result you expect. But I think as a member of his team, Buhari did his piece. And one of the things I was able to achieve in office
I'd like to go back to that. I just wanted to ask that question. Was this his inability? Will you say because he gave people a lot of free hands to do whatever they do, some of them took advantage of it and did not deliver?
Well, if anybody abused the trust, you cannot blame the leader. But I agree, at the end of the day, the buck stops. Oh, yes. But I think those who abuse the trust are the ones should be worried.
Thank you, Alaji. Because why I'm asking that, we are already seeing I don't want to, because you didn't write it in this book about the CBN. Because it was very strong. I looked. I wanted to really ask you about that. Because I'm a finance person, I was looking for that. Why am I saying that? The currency, what do I call the currency swap or this currency hardest thing that hit Nigeria? It killed a lot of businesses that were not able to stand up back again today. The informal sector in the Nigerian economy is largely driven by liquidity, cash. At that point, Nigeria could not access cash, whether through POS or through other media. And that really made a lot of Nigerians today still think that single policy was what caused the exchange rate to go to where it is today. Because again, we saw FX became a major challenge. And yet, we're told our reserve is doing well. And then after he left, with the kind of stories, and well, just like, for me, like I told you in private, I like the years of Muhammadu Buhari history of Nigeria economically. We've seen, by virtue of what they didn't do, we saw what the exchange rate became today. Because at a point, we're seeing CBN releasing 200 million every week to below the change. And yet, we saw a rate move from 360 to about 700. That money was still being released. But do you think this micro thing will help in the area of the economy?
Thank you, Mr. President. What Buhari did, what he did not do, the jury is still out. However, in respect of the Naira swap, redesigning of the currency, I make bold to say that people actually exploited Buhari's aversion to corruption. They came to him with a proposal that the best way to ensure that money does not play a major role in 2023 election was to change the design of the Naira. You see, whatever proposal you bring to Buhari and you hinge it on fighting corruption, you are likely going to succeed. But also remember that he also asked them certain questions. If they answered and asked them to go ahead. Two, we must also appreciate the fact that the central bank enjoys a lot of independence. No, in fact, in my 8 years as minister, I never saw a memorandum from the CBN for approval from cities. The CBN governor is not a member of the cabinet, yet he is more powerful than all the ministers put together. So I think this probably in part explains why people have that perception. And when people tell me that, oh, Buhari did not do well in terms of economy, I tell them that Buhari campaigned largely on his integrity, on his incorruptibility, and that it's the failure of any government. Of course, you are going to put it on the doorstep of the president. I think the entire cabinet will also have a share for the blame.
One thing the youth of today still keeps talking about, they were not really happy about that. Why was Twitter suspended? Because it was the voice of the voiceless. And at that time, it was the voice of the youth. But I remember you saying something that the social media it almost made you lose your marriage. So can we say that was the reason why when it was time to suspend them, Twitter was part of the social media at that time. So what was the reason behind the suspension of Twitter? And I think I still had an interview. You still think up to this moment that there should be regulation of the social media. Why?
Thank you very much. Yes, Twitter is part of the social media, all right? And it's true that I almost lost my marriage as a result of social media. See, what social media did was they actually came out with this story about how much money each minister had. I think they put $1.9 billion against my name in a bank that I don't even know. Of course, I knew it was fake news, but my wife did not think so. And in the middle of the night, one day, my wife woke me up. I was a bit afraid. What happened? My wife told me Yoruba, hey, Daddy, hallelujah, Oya. Hallelujah, Ope. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́, àkáǹtì tó wà lẹ́yìn fàṣẹ. Ẹ jẹ́ kí èmi náà jẹ́ signatory. In other words, what happened? My wife woke me up in the middle of the night. I said, you see, this life, I said we are going to live long. We're not. So please, Daddy, that your account, why you have 1.9 billion, I also want to be a signatory to it. I said, no, 1.9 billion. How will it come from? In the middle of the night, I had to go and look for a calculator. This is how much the budget of Ministry of Information is. I supposed to say 10 billion naira every year. Even if I steal all of it, in 3 years, I want to give me 30 billion. Look at what you are saying that I have. It was only then that my wife said, never thought about that. But actually, that our peers and our colleagues have been saying that, look, you are trusting your husband, you are defending him. He has another wife in the US who's managing that account. And unfortunately, we were able to resolve it. Yeah, but that's not why Twitter was suspended. Twitter was suspended because Twitter became the platform of choice for fake news, for disinformation, and for hate news. All those who wanted to destabilize Nigeria went to Twitter. I had Twitter, the banner of Twitter is probably one of the most difficult decisions I had to make. Why? Because I knew many young men and women who used Twitter to advertise their services and their goods. We also used Twitter. Many of the influencers also on Twitter. The second reason why I was reluctant to suspend Twitter services was because of the optics. It will send the wrong message, as if Nigeria is not tolerant, and that the expression of that we do not believe in freedom of expression. However, when you balance all this against national security, your choice is made easier. So really, we did not suspend Twitter because what many people thought was that we suspended Twitter services because Twitter removed a tweet by President Muhammad Buhari under their abusive policy. It's not correct. You know, as a matter of fact, I can tell that when I went to, at least in this book was when I went to Buhari to ask for permission to suspend Twitter, he asked me only 2 questions. Said, Lai, I hope it's not because they removed my tweet. I said, no, sir. He said, you have the capacity. I said, yes. I was it. But you see, and I must say that it's in this book also that Twitter was being hypocritical. The tweet that Nnamdi Kanu sent about Nigeria, when Nigeria is zoo, and say that anybody that comes to Biafra, will be dead. They did not remove it, despite the complaints of many Nigerians. So you could see that even Twitter was not sincere. Plus, Mukta, we had warned several times all these social media platforms that it's because Nigeria exists as a country, that's where you can do business. And if you know the role that Twitter played during answers, it bothered us. I'm sure you are coming to talk about that later. You see, if you recall, it was as if Twitter had a particular interest in Nigeria. It came to Nigeria, and the day after the answers protests were dispersed, all kinds of headlines came. Massacre at the toll gate, 100 lives lost. Massacre at the toll gate, 80 people killed. And what Twitter did was actually to use these headlines, and they tweeted it all over the world. So when the issue of Twitter suspension came, we were more worried and more concerned about the role Twitter played, not just during answers, but generally in sending out fake news.
I mean, you need to read this book. And we're just touching the surface. You need to read this book about some of these questions I'm asking him about the Twitter suspension. And to the chapter 15 of this book, I'm sure everybody all over the world must have read that chapter more. Anybody that have this book will actually go to read this chapter more. Again, with the vintage Lai Mohammed, you put the headline there, a massacre without bodies. Nobody was killed. Nobody was shot. When they were singing the national anthem, did you see that video? CNN ran a report that period and brought like there was a gunshot, and after that, everywhere became very dark. And again, who gave the instruction to be shot? Some said the instruction came from the presidency. Some said it came from the governor of Lagos State. Some said the soldiers were trigger happy. So, what is really the story of the massacre without bodies?
Your first question, did anybody die?
Yes.
During instance?
During instance.
Oh, yes.
At the toll gate?
No.
It's the toll gate I want.
Exactly. You see, at no point did the government say people did not die.
No, I know. I'm sorry, maybe I'm not at the toll gate.
At the toll gate,
nobody was shot.
You see,
The army didn't release.
You see, massacre. Yes. In massacre.
Is it the word now?
Listen, in massacre, we leave three things behind. One, corpses.
Yeah.
Two, grieving families. Thirdly, evidence. 5 years today, after so-called massacre, nobody has come out to say my son or my daughter when the toll gate and didn't come back. You see, this is common sense. No matter, even under the military, you will not stop a woman from money his son, his daughter. Yes, there was shooting at the toll gate, but they fired blank shots. And I kept saying this. You see, some people have been wired to believe the worst about the government. And there's no evidence that you want to give them.
No, Elijah, don't give them all. Don't want that. They have to buy the book. It's okay, Elijah. Okay. Yeah. So you want to hear more about the massacre without the body? It's buy the book. Elijah, another is not all gloomy. There are two more stories that we'll talk about, and then we're gonna entertain questions. One is in chapter 12, winning twice, Nigerian P&ID victory in the court of law and court of public opinion. For me, that was the greatest achievement of the administration.
Thank you. I guess we had one.
That was the greatest achievement of the Buhari administration. And from what we gathered from the beer parlor, and the beer parlor, the beer parlor news, they was largely driven by the now most criticized CBN governor, Emefiele. Because we're made to understand he was the one that told the president, we will not pay this money, we will go to court and we will win. But how we get that at the point of Nigeria, we thought, how did it happen?
Thank you, Mukta. What I wrote there, like saying, winning twice. One, because of public opinion. The second, because of law. That's from my own perspective. See, when the issue of P&ID came up, and there was a contract entered into about 2012 or 2013, I can remember. But by the time we woke up, sometimes in September, October 2019, we were slapped with a $9.6 billion bill that we had to pay.
A trading reserve.
Yes.
If you pay that one, we would have just less than 15 billion in our reserve.
Absolutely. So course, the government felt we should go to court and challenge it. I now and my team felt, yes, this matter will not only be won the court of law, also be won the public opinion. The first thing we did, after consultation with the Ministry of Natural Resources, Central Bank, Minister of Finance, Attorney General, was to have a World Press Conference in Abuja and explain and expose the fraud and that we are going to fight. Then when I came over to Lagos, and here, Mr. Bismarck Rewani was fantastic, was able to arrange for me major multinationals, investors, and ambassadors so that we could assure them that there should be no panic. That we are going to fight this matter and we're going to win. After which we proceeded to London with the CBN governor, Attorney General, the IG, police, the EFCC chairman, myself, and a couple of other people. And our strategy in London was very simple. We would go to every international media house. We will address every global think tank and put our case across while the legal team was building our case in court. So we visited CNN, Al Jazeera, Reuters, AFP, all the major international, BBC, and told them our story ahead of court. Because we put the Attorney General in front to tell the story, but we mobilized the media. And you see, because even judges listen, even judges read. And I think we were able to put things in a better perspective. And I'm glad, not only was the arbitration claim declared fraudulent, even up to last year, I think it was yes. They were asked to pay our legal fees. Yeah. See, but this to me the first instance, an example where you use communication to assist in legal matters. Because what we did also was that we also brought to the consciousness of Nigerians the issue of P&ID, so that they will know what we were up to.
In the entertainment industry, the entertainment industry is Nigerian most, after the, sorry, don't be jealous, after the financial industry, which Nigerian has been globally. We are known, you go to Paris, you go to London, you go to New York, you see a Nigerian bank there. After that, one area that Nigeria has really thrived was in the entertainment industry, and largely driven by, and we have been one of the most success stories in the world. Before now, during your time, when we will have music, you used to play foreign music in these discos, in this, but this is when you go abroad, they play Nigerian music, and it's all about tourism or culture. You did something remarkable, the National Theatre. Why? What led to that edifice being transformed? Even if you did not conclude it, the current administration, I think they finally concluded it. But what led to that transformation that we saw? And it was actually led by the same CBN government. And CBN took it like a corporate social responsibility to transform the National Theatre.
I'm glad that the GM of National Theatre is here. Thank you very much for coming. But you see, number one, the project was completed before we. It was not commissioned.
No commission.
Okay. So we just want to put that context. Now, what happened was that it's what is called Bankers Committee. Every year, the Bankers Committee, the chairman of Bankers Committee is always CBN. They pick on a project. This is either 1% or 2% of all the profit the banks make. You decide every year on what project to invest in. Sometimes it could be health, sometimes it could be environment. Somehow in 2019, 2019, said that it's going to be in the creative industry, the economy. Now, so the central bank wrote a memo, Mr. President, informing the president that the Bankers Committee was ready to invest 100 billion naira in the industry. And they asked Mr. President that they should be given the fallow land, National Theatre, to develop into 3 verticals, 4 verticals, one for fashion, one for IT, one for music, and one for film. Thank you, man. And this memo got to the president at a time when ministers had been asked to go home, because we were not re-engaged on about August or thereabouts. So the president approved, but asked them to please liaise with the relevant stakeholders. So I was reappointed luckily. And one day I was in my office and my permanent secretary ran to say, Oga, come and see you. They have taken over National Theatre. That nobody can take over National Theatre. Say, Oga, please tune to NTA. And I did. And really, I saw the CBN governor. I saw some people and they were trying to do handover. I said, don't worry. Grace, don't worry, they'll come back to us. Within an hour, got a call from the governor of Lagos. Say, look, Laji, I need to come and see you. So he came and explained. So you know what? He explained that when there was no minister, he called this approval. And I told him, I said, you see, it's my head that is bushy. And you want to cut it for me? How would I complain? I said, you want to invest 100 billion naira, you and the CBN, Minister of the Bankers Commission, want to invest 100 billion naira. If I stay 10 years as minister, I will never get 10 billion naira. So let's talk. When we start talking, I said, you see, I don't agree with your investing 100 billion in those 4 verticals. Let us first fix and rehabilitate the National Theatre. After we've done that, then come and use your money for the 4 verticals. And they reasoned and saw with me. And of course, there were many obstacles. First was the union. We had to convince them, one, that no job will be lost, nobody will be retrenched. 2, we have to convince them that once the National Theatre is completed, it will be fairly accommodated. About that is in the overall interest of Nigeria. I thank God today that if you go to the National Theatre, after almost 46 years of decay, we have a brand new National Theatre.
Thank you, Alaji. I'm going to ask you 2 questions, so from there we can now take the audience. The question I want to ask you is the man called our current president, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. You said something about it. You said you went into a place, you saw somebody that was an opposition. And you went back to Ashwaja and said, what is this man doing here? This man, he said, now he sit down. And he told you, you have to carry everybody along. We've heard so many stories. He is the man that rewards loyalty. He's the man that does not forget people that have been kind to him. For me now, I don't know about them. Me. I'm surprised that Eli is not in Ashwaju team. Because it was more or less like partner in a lot of struggles for Nigeria. Because everywhere you see Ashwaju, you see, like, I can remember sometime Ashwaju is talking. He said, let me just stop it. Lie complete. And you know. So we will say that actually I don't have a relationship with Ashwaju any longer. Or you have become, sorry, it's the media that use that word, failed politician. So what's the relationship with Ashwaju?
Excellent. I'm sure that my leaders are here. Bola is here. Yes, Raji, you are right. Excellent. See, I keep telling people, what's between me and Ashwaju goes beyond political office. Ashwaju blocked me from political oblivion and brought me to political limelight. When Ashwaju made me chief of staff, Lagos State, he knew the risk he was taking. He knew I was from Kwara State. And I remember, God bless Mama. The day that's Ashwaju's mother. He went and complained to her that the people in Alausa will go on strike if Lai Mohammed should resume with you as chief of staff. What say, Mama? It's so full. And tí o bá fẹ́ ṣiṣẹ́, o máa lọ lé. Ẹgbẹ́ máa dì mọ́ báàgì mi ni. Ẹjọ́ lọ sábà wọ́n. In other words, look, nobody stop me from making Lai Mohammed my chief of staff. I remember also some people who went and complained about the cabinet in Lagos State. I was from Kwara State. Everybody was from Osun State. Wale Odun was from Ogun State. Attorney General then Shebaju from Ogun State. Lalai from Oyo State. Ilalake from Ekiti State. And that's what are these foreigners doing? Lagos State cabinet. And I told them very calmly. You say, you know what? See, all these people that you have mentioned, they were approved by the House of Assembly. But you see, like, it's my own personal choice. If you want to take all the others, but this one, see. So that is connection between me and him, and that's why when I listen to, these naysayers and food is ready politicians, just laugh.
Okay. So you have an excellent relationship with Ashwaju.
Absolutely. And you can see in this book.
Yes,
it's very important.
I don't want to buy the book. Buy the book so that you can hear more about that relationship. Okay, Alaji, this is my last question. Somebody said that. This is my last question, Alaji. Tell me, what was the two most difficult decision you ever made as a minister?
The first one I've told is Twitter. Second was calling out CNN. You see, CNN bullies everybody because of their reputation, because of their global reach. They bully everybody and they lie. And when it came to the situation of toll gate, I took them on because they lied. They were not on ground. They relied on videos that were sent to them, and they were reporting as if they were actually on ground. That was professional misconduct. So, and essentially, I remember after our press conference, which called out CNN, we were going to Purapat one day, and some of my ministers they didn't know I was behind them. Said, "You see this line? It's too arrogant. How can he go and challenge CNN?" I just laugh at them. But the truth of the matter was that CNN relied on videos that were made and sent to them as if they were around. So taking up an organization like CNN, you are not going to have many friends. And the sanctions that are recommended against CNN were approved by Buhari, but they were thwarted by my own colleagues who chipped in and said, can you go and sanction CNN? Well, CNN, they are human, they're not infallible. So I think of course, NSAS, all these problems are with NSAS. NSAS, honestly, believe that, because up to today, every Nigerian still believes people were killed at the time. There's nothing you can tell them. But it is not, because, see, there's a procedure. When soldiers are going to qualify, they tell them there's a procedure, they go to the armory, they sign for bullets, they sign for ammunition, they sign for guns. And it was blank shot. Because I was always in touch with the chief of defense staff and the chief of army staff. So I knew what was going on.
Thank you so much, Lai Mohammed. It's been a pleasure moderating this book with you. And like I keep saying, what he just said is not half of what is in this book. There's a lot of stories. It's so sweet. It's a book you can just, and the good thing about the book is you don't have to start from chapter 1 to chapter 2. There are stories that interest you, just go and you just read it and you enjoy it. It's a vintage. If you enjoy Lai Mohammed when he gives interview, you really enjoy this book. Time for question and answers. If you are online, please just send your question to us. If you are online, we'll try as much as possible. We're going to take 5 questions from those here.
My name is Yinka Abioye. I am the chairman of the new Festac Africa Festival. We have the Renaissance Festac of 1977. We've done 4 years in a row. We're hoping to do something in Nigeria next year. And I'm glad the comment around the National Theatre came up. I've gone to look at it. A job well done. More power to you. For me, I think it's more of a softie. Headlines and soundbites. And a black and white book. What is the message around the book? It's a very voluminous book. Is the message more for people to dig in and track each item that comes to their mind? Or is it a chronological story of what you had accomplished? Thank you very much.
The government communicator will actually define and shape the administration. In other words, what you find here will be communication tools and strategies for you that you can use to add value to a government. See, when you read this book, you find out that there are some initiatives that you make as an information minister that would have an impact in government. For instance, the issue of town hall meetings. We invented it, and we saw it as a platform through which the government can speak to the government and get a feedback. Tour of government projects also was our own idea to add value to government. Testimony series, the same thing. And when you look at inside Buhari's administration, the scorecard project, it's one of the novel manner of campaigning. Because in the run-up to the 2023 elections, the opposition said, oh, this government has nothing to campaign because they have done nothing. So we decided to have a scorecard series where all ministers will come and give an account to their stewardship, thereby giving every kind of APC campaign material. And then, if you read this book also, you see that every year we went to Washington and we went to London to defend the government on topical issues. And when the election of the president became quite contentious, when we were told that LP won, because on the social media, LP won the elections. And everybody was believing it. We had to go to the US and to London, and we engaged congressional aides, we engaged international media, we engaged global think tanks. So this book is like, it's good for researchers, it's good for communications, and political students. It's also good for policymakers because it tells you how you can use, government communication to actually, drive an administration. Sometimes, we set the pace for government, and that's the beauty of administration. If you do something that is right, you'll be encouraged. When we went to Konduga, Kauri, Bama, it was to change the narrative, because before then nobody believed that the military had actually, made such a success. But when we went there with journalists and came back, we changed the narrative. So that is what is in that book. Thank you.
I recall our path actually crossed on my one of my travels to Abuja. And there's this myth that once a minister, you cannot apparently can be bold and daring, and sometimes in my life. And I walked up to you. Good afternoon, sir. Good morning, sir. Oh, good morning. How are you? Fortunately for me, when we were going to the bandit sites, we were in the same. And since then, anytime we had unity, so I indicate from there. Thank you so much for that fatherly advice all this while. And my question, sir, in the course of a presentation this afternoon, you mentioned the late P&ID to be a very cool, calm, and connected human being during his lifetime. However, he made a stand statement sometime about our youth that they are very, very lazy. Sir, what could have prompted that kind of statement from him? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think context is very important in a statement. Buhari loved the youth. I represent for all his projects, all his programs. The context within which he made that statement is what we should put out with, not just those words. But Buhari believed very much. Yeah.
Good day, everyone. Everyone likes my name. I'm a member of the Nation newspaper editorial board. I'm a columnist too. I'd like to ask you sort of a conceptual question. You are a unique person. You are in opposition, and you're always a government, also a government spokesman within 15 years or so, if my math is right. Now, the Nigerian media historically have been adversarial. From Lagos Weekly Report, 1920, 1900 to 20, Abamakole, Lagos Daily News, West African Pilot, Daily Service, and all that. Even in the modern era, the Guardian, and all that, they always thrive on opposition. Now, you made that, use that very well when you are opposition person. But then you are paid back in your own coin when you are minister. Now, looking back as a practitioner, what do you think of the Nigerian media in their historical role? And I personally, I get so worried because it's like you tend to minimize what is good and get overzealous for what is bad. What does that do for nation building? You have been opposition and government, and you are opposed to comment on it. Please comment, sir.
Thank you very much. I think I've been very privileged. I'm probably the only Nigerian going back to back for 18 years. Was spokesperson for the opposition for 10 years and 8 years spokesperson for the government. Now, see, being in opposition is completely different from being in government. Being in opposition, your constituency is just your party. You have only one goal. How does your party win elections? And in doing so, you can afford to be audacious. You can take risks. But when you're in government, the whole country is your constituency. When I was spokesperson for APC, ACA, all of my business about the federal character. If you get in the way of ACA, precisely, it does not matter where we come from. But the moment you become the minister, certain considerations will come to play. The writers use the word adversarial. The job of the media is cut out for it in the Constitution, which is you must hold accountable the government. So while we had the power in government, the media had the accountability. They must make us, account for what we are doing. The media has not changed the adversarial role because they have been watching. And my advice to government, you must make friends and make partners with the media. The media is not the opposition, the amplifiers. They are your opponents in a way, but they are very powerful ones. But what do you do? Make friends with them. I remember that all throughout the tenure of President Muhammad Buhari, Punch newspaper never referred to him as president. They referred to him as general. That's why the fact that he won election twice. But for me as Minister of Information, I did not take it against a Punch. I went to their offices, I visited them, I included them in my trips. Or Daily Trust. Daily Trust was unrelenting in criticizing our administration. What do? You try and move towards. You can never fight the media. You will lose at them. Draw them near.
Word of wisdom. Don't fight them. Draw them near. Okay. Yeah, I won't fight the media. Okay, I have two questions. It's not me, it's not me. It's not my question. It's online, it's not my question. Me, I didn't ask any question. I was just reading from the book. It's the book. Okay. This one is they say, I am Ahmed Rufai, Director of Finance, Lagos State Higher Institution Student Bulletin, ECO Bulletin. Considering the rapid growth of digital journalism, citizen reporting, AI-generated content, and increasing concern about misinformation, how do you envision the future of the Nigerian media ecosystem in the nearest future, particularly in balancing press freedom, national security, and responsible journalism?
Thank you very much. There must be a regulation. Social media must be regulated. Social media regulation does not mean censorship. You see, it's like social media is like having a vehicle without any brakes. Honestly, that is exactly what it is. You see, today, anybody with enough data can go to that room and make a video, and the whole world will share it, it goes viral. No. Even in developed worlds today, social media is being regulated. In Australia, for instance, if you are under 16, you have no access to social media. Because people think it is the government that is really the victim of social media. No. Many marriages have been destroyed by social media. Young men and women have committed suicide because they were bullied on the social media. So we must have the courage to regulate social media. We tried it. We invited NUJ, we invited Guild of Editors, they all shunned us. But today, they're all victims of the abuse of social media. So my answer is that we must, without, really censoring freedom of the press.
Okay, thank you. A second question again. Thank you, Alaji. This section has been enlightening and engaging. The book has helped us confront issues that were previously misunderstood. How will encourage incumbent political leader to intentionally create time for similar reflective forum for open dialogue, honest listening, and engagement like this while staying in office to help bridge the gap between policy decision and citizens' living reality, clearly misunderstood pain points, and foster more empathetic, responsive governance? I think it's just a suggestion, not really a question.
I think everybody who has had the opportunity to observe, to please document, the experience. The contemporary history will be incomplete if those of us who have been privileged to serve as ministers, as governors, if we don't document, what we went through. Because there's a lot of misconceptions about government. More of fact, the moment you are made a minister, the impression is that you are made for life. That you will never be in want of money again. No, but they think that you have is safe in your office, that you can just open and give money to everybody. The moment you become a minister, you become the Ashwaju in your village. And of course, there's money that goes with it. We must change this. Ministers are just public servants. Ministers are there to represent you. But we are the ones that we worship our ministers and our governors. And in the process, they will keep their hands into the public purse because of the expectations of the public. So I think it's important let them know that what we mean. There are many things that the minister goes through. I'll give you an example. It's a pity that sometimes in government you can go to jail by being honest. Mr. Daniel remembers this example. I want to show you. I was supposed to go to China. And you know, this civil servant balance, they said the money had not dropped. Technically, what it means is that even though there's budget provision, but it has been no disbursement. So we're representing an organization. We're leading one of the prosecutors. So it was suggested that why doesn't that prosecutor give us the money? When we come back, we pay. And because of our background, I started to put it in writing. We wrote a memo. This prosecutor said, you are going to pay for what? Journey. But when we come back, we will reimburse you because our money has not dropped at the same. By time, well, I wrote the memo. The memo was leaked. I was in Lagos when Showore called me and said, Honorable Minister, is it true that you have asked NBC to loan you 8 million? I said, yes. I said, you know that is wrong? I said, why? I said that is called buyment. And listen, I wanted to steal the money. I could just have given oral, directive. But to show my, honesty of purpose, that's why I put it in writing. So it was one matter, became a national matter. The president actually called me. Said, like, what's going on? Yes, I'm supposed to go to China. Money has no. And we said we should just take. And I said, we are wrong. That's for environment. And it's wrong in a civil service. Whereas, if I just give you instruction, give us 10 million, we'll go and come back. So that's why I said in government, a lot of booby traps. And this is why it is important to write this so that people coming in will know that this is how to navigate the landscape of public service.
Thank you. Can you just give me 2 of those questions that were written out?
Okay, sir. So the different questions, I will read them one after the other. They are different questions entirely. I've gone through. Yeah. So the first person asks, what personal experience influenced the book? What personal experience influenced the book? That's the first question. And the second says, as an envoy of Lagos State Higher Institutional Student Bulletin, my question is, what role do you think young communicators, informations carrying individual or bodies should play in shaping national discourse and building trust between the government and the citizens through information? So the third says, how did you navigate your role with all the propaganda by the International News Agency? So then can we answer the 3 first?
I think I answered that question.
Okay, so I'll skip that. It said, so another person said, good day, Alaji. What is happening in Kwara APC today? You appear to have taken a sit-down look approach. Are there issues between you and the current governor? And how will this affect the fortunes of the party in Kwara? And the last question says,
we are reviewing the book. We are reviewing the book. So if he wants to come in, he can call me, but maybe.
So the last
we are reviewing the book. It's not in the book. He will say, I'll talk about it.
The last person said, you only told us about Otoge and the plans around it. The question the moderator asked is that you know the playing with money. Yes or no? No. So that's about the question.
No. You see, what happened in Otogari was the grassroots campaign. It was a campaign where we spent less money. We couldn't even afford to spend as much money as a sitting governor. Because if you recall, elections took place in an atmosphere where the governor was PDP, the senators were PDP, House of Reps were PDP, Council Chairman was PDP, and even of the 24 members of the Assembly, only one was APC. Where would the money come from? But everybody was committed and passionate to deliver, to deliver his or her. So I remember in the run-up, we started the election and we were already winning. Then I got a call from ID saying that because one particular political party was omitted, we will have to cancel the election for the rerun. I said, people in Kwara will kill all of you. If you let them hear, if anybody believes that he has been, let him go to court. It was the first, honestly, in the history of Nigeria, the first movement that will sweep, a sitting government, which, like I said, the only one person, the only public official we had was a member of House of Assembly. Every other person was PDP. So where would it get the money from? No.
Yeah, they say they should answer Kwara police. Yeah, they say you didn't sit down.
It's not possible. Because even yesterday, was my chairman, Kwara, Fabio, because there was an issue as to the guideline says all those who have done only one time should be returned. Now, they now called me from home that there's a problem in my ward, in my local government. I said, what is it? Said that they don't want a consensus. So I called my people. What's wrong? Said, no, they want a consensus, there's no problem. But the incumbent has done 2 terms. So I went back to the NEP official and I said, this is the situation. He said, he would cross-check for me. So I called the chairman myself. Chairman, what is going on? Chairman said, yes, it's a problem. And it's nationwide. He said, they said that those who came in as caretaker committee members, they are not elected. Therefore, you cannot count that term for them. And I now called it. I said, I will call the National Secretary. Please make that clarification. That it's only elected officials that have done 2 terms and will be bad on the election. So that shows that even after yesterday, I was in touch.
Stay in touch with them.
Thank you.
So, I think the people from Unilag last week said they want to go. But before this, that will be the last thing. Alaji, in just one question, just one answer, yes or no. Was there a Kaba in Buhari administration?
Even in my house, there's a Kaba.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Agosa Emmanuel, student of Lagos State University of the Department of Guidance and Counseling, and also a member of the Eco Bulletin Board. All right. So, I want to congratulate you, sir, for the nomination of the book, sir. And also, there is one question that has been bothering me so far, because I tend to look at it like from a political scientist view, because according to Thomas Dye, he said public policy can be defined as what government chooses to do and not to do. So as a result of that, when you're talking about the Buhari administration, about its fight against corruption, and then looking at Nigeria of today, and they will look at the scale of corruption that is still going on in the country, then the question that bothers me is that what is it that he ought to have done, you understand, to reduce corruption that he did not do? That's it, sir.
Thank you very much. See, when we won elections in 2015, I had no inkling at all of being a minister until one day when they called me and said, Lai, where are you seeing this book? I said, I'm in Lagos. I said, what are you doing in Lagos? That's when I said, I live in Lagos, sir. Can't you come in for the meeting or transition committee? I said, sir, I'm not a member. I said, okay. Today will contact you. Within 2 hours, I got a call from Tinubu that why should you drop a letter inviting me to the meeting? So I asked him to drop it in Lagos State. He's an office. So the following morning, I was in Abuja for the transition committee. That was the first inkling I had that I might be made a minister. Mainly, I got that inkling. I called my team. So the Emir and go, what should be our first and most important project as a minister? We agree that it should be attitudinal change. Nigerians must imbibe the efforts of discipline, integrity, hard work, industry, and they must eschew corruption, bribery, and economic sabotage. So we raised money among my friends, and we engaged in advertising campaign. Advertising company. We draw up advertising campaign for us so that we would be able to fight corruption. So we target change begins with me. I don't know how many people that remember that campaign. Yes. But we failed. You see, Nigeria is a very, very funny country. The first problem we had, after cobbling funds from friends and everybody, to start that campaign. The day that campaign was launched by Buhari, apparently a lazy officer in the presidency. Because what you do is that if you are the owner of the project, the president will ask you to give a draft speech. You send the draft speech will be tinkered with at the presidency. That's their business. But this lazy officer went and included a quote by Obama without giving credit to Obama. So, of all the good things the president said that day, somebody just came and punctured it and said, look, this is plagiarism. And we were copying all the first people we had. The problem we had that a young man came to me after I became a minister and said he had an idea. It was along the same line what came begins with me. And I said, listen, it's not, this is an idea I've worked on. So, I'm sorry, we cannot take it. He went ahead to blackmail us using newspapers and online. The only person who came to my rescue was then the COO of MTA. And it was just fortuitous because he came to me the eve of my being sworn in. And it's because previously the Minister of Information was also the Minister of Communication in the previous administration. So he thought I was going to be Minister of Communication. So he said MTN would want to work with me as Minister of Communication. I said, I'm not sure I'll be Minister of Communication, but I'm sure I might be Minister of Information. However, I also want to work with you because I need money. I want you to sponsor this project, change the things with me. Now, so the program, even from inception, became controversial. We ran out of money. I went and approached the governor's forum to give us money, didn't get any money from anybody. When the little money I had finished, we only sustained that campaign on NTA and FRC. However, whether we want it or not, until there's a national rebirth in Nigeria, we will not defeat corruption. But corruption is not just at the high level. The gate man is corrupt. The reception is corrupt. The driver is corrupt. I hope my driver is not around here. So we need to really have that campaign. And it should start at the level of primary school. Because I'm told that even in lectures today in primary school for class monitor, they are using money. So, and I'm not just going that national impact. That's the whole thing.
Thank you. Thank you, Alaji. Thank you, Alaji. I think we have come to the end of this exciting book review, Anchor book review. I think this is one of the most exciting I've got. Maybe because it has to do